Welcome to Disability Employment, the third installment of our 2022 Howard County Transition Symposium, a four-part webinar series presented monthly from February to May 2022. I'm Dawson Robertson from the Howard County Public School System, and I'll be moderating tonight's presentation. So let's move into our featured speaker today. Without further ado, I'd like to introduce Ms. Karen Lee, who is the Executive Director, Supporting Employment, Equality, and Community. The agency is called SEEC. Karen, welcome to the Transition Symposium.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. And I did see Connie from the Arc of Maryland on as well. So there she is. How are you? Great to see so many folks. And I wanted to just start off by saying thank you for having me tonight. I am the Executive Director, as Dawson said, from SEEC. We're an organization that provides supports to people with disabilities through mostly people with intellectual and developmental disabilities in the DC metro area. So we're both a DC and a Maryland provider. When I'm not doing that job, I'm working with the Department of Labor. I'm a subject matter expert with the Department of Labor, and I help states and providers around the United States to increase opportunities for competitive integrated employment. So I write policies, I write some federal policies, I write state policies. So I have a real passion around helping people with disabilities get to work. And most recently, we've done a lot of work around veterans and increasing some of those, bringing some of those techniques that we've used to help people with intellectual and developmental disabilities, people with mental health and behavioral support needs, and people and veterans to all be successful in employment. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit today about what employment is and what disability employment is. I'm going to share some definitions. I'm going to share some stories. And I recognize that the path is going to be different for every single person. I wanted to start off by making it really clear. I believe that everybody can work. And work looks different for everybody. For some people, it's sitting behind a desk and using a keyboard. For some people, it's laying on the floor and touching an iPad and playing a song for kids. For some people, it might be walking dogs, but I believe everybody can work. And I also believe that it is our, those of us who support people with disabilities to work, it is our responsibility to figure out how to help them to achieve that. I don't always think that the system is the right way to go. You've all been in probably special ed system for a long time, and they do their best. And when you graduate, you're looking forward to a second system, an adult system, whether that is through behavioral mental health supports or through developmental disabilities administration, whatever it is. But I think that those systems should be here to help and support the dream. That should not be the goal. Getting into the system should never be the goal. A job and a real life and a life where you can thrive, that's the real goal. And any other kind of support you need. I know you had Marianne K. Bresci on the very first week, and she talked about the life course framework. And I really wholly believe in that. I believe that we have visions for our kids with disabilities and our kids without disabilities. We've got a life trajectory view of where we want them to be and what they want them to do. And we might need some support along the way. I think that we've gotten away from the vision and the dream, and we've more focused on the process, which is getting an agency to help us. But in reality, most of you who are parents on this call today, and there are 55 of you, what I'm going to tell you is that you have already done the advocacy work. You're on this call today because you are good advocates. You understand that you need some extra help, but you also are your son or daughter's very, very best advocate. Or for some of you who receive supports or are transitioning yourself, you yourselves are your very best advocates. And so I want you to just keep that in mind as we go through our discussion today. So I'm going to share my screen. I'm hoping that I don't lose your faces, but and chats. But if I do, feel free, Dawson or Melissa, to stop me if there's questions along the way. But I'm going to share some things, and I'm also going to share a video. So let me see how to do this. Share screen. Okay.
Hey, Karen, we're going to pause you just 1 minute and,
Yep.
and allow Connie's just going to give the instruction about using the Spanish room one more time
Okay.
for us. Thank you, Connie.
My pleasure, my pleasure. So I'm going to start talking in Spanish. Buenas noches, bienvenidos a todos. Quisiera comunicarles a todas las familias que hablan español, que están ofreciendo interpretación. Si van al globito de abajo, en donde dice interpretación y hacen clic ahí, van a poder escuchar esta presentación en español. Cualquier cosa, no duden en comunicarse con nosotros para que podamos ayudarlos. Buenas noches. Thank you.
Thank you, Connie.
My pleasure.
Okay. Okay. Here we go. Okay, now I'm so psyched I can still see everybody. Okay, so this is me, and you'll get a copy of this after I take off some pictures. So I will tell you I've got stories and pictures on here. I have spoken to everybody that I have a picture or a story for, and they said it was okay for me to share. But when I share the PowerPoint, I won't share their pictures. So you'll see them tonight, but when we share the PowerPoint, you won't be seeing them. Okay, I'm going to start off by playing this because Dawson said it really touched him. So we're gonna start off with one of my favorite videos, and Connie got to watch it yesterday with me with the ARC.
The baker had Simone, and everybody saw that she could do the job. The lawyer went to the baker and saw Simone at work. The lawyer hired John because the baker had Simone. The baker had Simone. The dentist went to the lawyer and saw John at work. The dentist had Sophia because the lawyer had John, because the baker had Simone. The baker had Simone. The farmer went to the dentist and saw Sophia at work. The farmer had Kate because the dentist had Sophia, because the lawyer had John, because the baker had Simone. The baker had Simone. The farmer went to the farmer and saw Kate at work. The farmer had Paul because the farmer had Kate, because the dentist had Sophia, because the lawyer had John, because the baker had Simone. The baker had Simone. The baker went to the barber and saw Paul at work. He didn't have a clue, but it was thanks to his first move that the barber had Paul, because the farmer had Kate, because the dentist had Sophia, because the lawyer had John, because the baker had Simone. The baker had Simone. The baker had Simone.
Isn't that great? Whoops, sorry. Moving on. So I'm going to tell you that the reason why I think work is so important in everything we do is because work is a way for people to belong. And I really believe that everybody should belong. Everybody should have friends and a vision for their future, and they should have the life that they want. They should have the money. You're going to talk to Mike Dalto next month, and he's fantastic. He'll tell you about how to do that. And work is the common denominator among all of that, right? You go to work and you're talking to people and you get opportunities to meet other people. I met my husband 32 years ago, because one of my colleagues lived in his condo association building, and she said, "Come up here, we're having a party at our condo and I want you to meet some people." When I went there, he was there with his friend. And so I didn't meet him at work, but I met him through somebody I know at work, right? And there's so many things that can come out of work, and work is the place where we feel like we're contributing and making a difference and so on. So that's why I really think we start with work. So life isn't all work, right? Life is a little bit of everything. We work as the center sometimes, not that you live to work, but that when you work, you get to live. And so ways that we belong, it's not just work, it's all this other stuff that happens in your life and all this other stuff that goes on and all around it. And that's some of what we're looking for your vision for, or your son or daughter's vision about how they want their life to be. So we like to think about people with disabilities and kind of they're thinking about jobs in 4 different phases. It always ends in work though. And the first might be, I'm not so sure what I want to do. And at that point, we really start talking about work. And I know we have some middle school parents on right now. So you need to be talking about work in the same way you do with any other child right now. So in middle school, they might be doing extra jobs around the house. They might be bringing the paper up for a neighbor. They might be, taking starting to take the CPR class so they can do some babysitting. Want to think about work in the very same way. And then we may go, I think I want to work, really a second phase. I think I want to work. I'm not sure what that means for me. And maybe when you're out at Home Depot picking up some plants on the weekend, you might say, oh, look, that person works at Home Depot, right? Start talking about work. When you go to the dentist, to say, oh, look at that job. That's a really interesting job. Integrate what you're seeing in work. And then finally, we get to the point where we say, yeah, I want to work. And we start doing some real work on trying to understand what people's gifts and talents and so on are. And then we move into the I got a job phase. So everybody has hopes and dreams about work, right? Everybody, when they were young, said, when I grow up, I want to be. So think about that for yourself. Just take a second to think. What did you want to be when you grew up? What did you want? I wanted to be a nurse, I think, for a while. My husband says that he always wanted to be an engineer because he said engineers are born. But what did you want to be when you grow up? And are we asking our sons and daughters with disabilities, what do you want to be when you're out of high school, right? What do you want to be? Now, I never said I wanted to be a CEO of a nonprofit supporting people with disabilities and consulting with the Department of Labor to do policy making and consulting work. I never said that. That's a part of what life is about. This world that we have. We start off with being a lifeguard, or we start off by bussing dishes, or we start off by mowing our neighbor's lawn. And we see where that goes, and we see where that goes, and it keeps whirling and whirling for us. And that's no different for our sons and daughters with disabilities. Their first job is not their career job. It wasn't our career jobs, right? It wasn't where we were going to end up. So this is just a great picture to remind us, most people want to be what they see. I want to be a nurse, I want to be a lawyer, I want to be a police officer or a doctor or a firefighter. These are what children see. Bob the Builder, right? We had a lot of Bob the Builders for a while. Hopefully we had some teachers from Arthur and watching his teacher. So that's why I think it's so important to point out things about work, and while you're out, to really be intentional to say, the minister had to go to school to do this job. This is his job or her job. Or see that person on the side of the road who's holding up the flag telling us to go? That's an interesting job. What would that job be like? So to really start talking about other jobs, because if we only have exposure to a small amount of jobs, that's what people think they want to go into. So when you were young, what did you want to be when you grow up? Keep asking yourself that over and over again. Keep asking your sons and daughters that question. We ask our sons and daughters that all the time. So I'm going to share a story about a guy, and Connie got to hear this the other day. I'm going to share this about my friend Jeff, and Jeff has given me permission to share the story, as I said. And his life is definitely a whirl. It's one of those things where he kind of just got a job when he first got out of school. And then as he met people and his life changed and he got some more money from working and he moved out of his family's home, he's had more and more opportunities, and it just kept going and going and going, and still is. So this is Jeff. He started off right up here in the corner, working at a horse farm. And at the horse farm, he met somebody, and he was working with like 1 or 2 horses specifically, because that's what he wanted to do. He lives out in Poolsville, which is kind of like Western Howard County. It's kind of out in the, you know, the farm country. And he was doing some work with horses, and somebody else came along and said, hey, I'm interested in having you help mine too. I'm my horse, because I'm not around every day. Would you mind, when you're here, would you go for a walk with him, muck his stall, and do the and feed him? And he's like, okay. So he got another job. He is a guy who needs a kind of a bit of support, and his staff helped him to support him to do this. And from that connection, the person said, hey, and I own a restaurant. Would you be interested in working at my restaurant with me? So then Jeff moved over to this wage job, which is with the guy with the apron around his. And that wage jobs just basically mean that you receive a standard wage, right? So you're getting an hourly rate or a salary, unlike a contract or a consultant. So we use that term wage job. And he still had a little bit of time in his schedule, so he started taking a pottery class, and he started to make some pottery, and people started to ask him to buy their pottery because he did such a great job. And so he started his own small business selling pottery. So he's working at the horse place a little bit. He's working in his wage job. He's selling pottery. He's decided to stop with the horses because he really wanted to pursue his passion of trains. And he started to volunteer. Now, this is not instead of, this is in addition to. He started to volunteer at Wheaton Regional Park as a conductor on the trains. And you can see here, he's gathering friends, he's gathering opportunities, he's gathering more life experience. He ends up in moving out of his family's house. He ends up being able to take trips with his money that he has gotten from working. You see here, he's, you know, at the slide, he also loves not Nashville. He loves Graceland. And so he wants to go to Graceland like every year on a trip. And there's in his pottery class, and he's doing some karaoke when he's out on one of his vacations. So his life was a whirl. He didn't get the first job. It wasn't the perfect job. It wasn't the only job, but it whirled. It was a really great opportunity for him. So I'm going to share with you a glossary of terms. And we have our own, just like in special ed, you have your own terms, right? You have the IEP, the Individual Education Plan, and you have DOORS, the Department of Rehabilitation Services, and you have Parks and Rec, and you have all of these terms. And I want to share these terms with you along with the stories so that you understand these terms along the way. So the first term, and Mary Ann started this with you on the first week, is a person-centered plan. So in Maryland, if you have an intellectual or developmental disability and you qualify for DDA services, or if you're in the school system, you have an IEP, and in the adult system, it's called a person-centered plan. And we use different tools to help people figure out what it is they want to work on for the next year and what they want their life to be like. And when Mary Ann was on, she talked about that trajectory, and that's exactly what we use these tools for. Even if you don't go in a service system, even if you want to go to college, or you want to go to community college, or you want to go to trade school, whatever it is, this kind of planning, and I have used this kind of planning with my kids who don't have disabilities, just because I think it's a really great way for us to say stop and think about what it is that we want to do. This is a term you might hear, employment first, and we don't always do it here in Maryland, but technically we are by law an employment first state. And that means whenever you start talking about life after school, that the first thing they should be talking with you about, your coordinator, whether you're in the mental health system or in the developmental disability system, we really should be talking about employment. And go back to what I said when I first started about employment, is that it all starts with employment, right? The friendships, the opportunity, the belonging, the money, everything kind of starts from that. And that's this idea that we don't say, so what service do you want? We say, what are you thinking about work? And that's really the way it should be. And so for you to be framing every time you go into an IEP meeting from now until your son or daughter leaves the school system, you should be saying, how can you help me to make sure that my son or daughter is ready to work? How can we work this year on making sure they're ready for work? And it's not skills, it's things like, do they know how to eat in a lunchroom? Do they know how to take a bus? Do they know how to call an Uber? Do they know how to bring money in for Pizza Friday that everybody has and just take that one piece they know how to? All those are really important. Can they be a part of a team? All those are really important things in employment first. Another term you might hear is something called meaningful day. And basically what meaningful day is kind of that picture I showed you before of the person and work is in the middle and all that stuff is around the outside. Meaningful day is really about how do you really make a person's day matter, right? So that they're not sitting separate somewhere but they're really in control and they're really living the best life that they possibly can. And that's kind of, they say, that meaningful day. So this is another word I think that you'll hear, another set of words, competitive integrated employment. And that is, no matter where supports you get, competitive integrated employment means that you're working at a job in the community and you're working for the employer. So if people came to SEEC and got services at SEEC, I would never hire them and then have them go do work somewhere. I help them to find jobs right where, with whatever employer they have. So if they're going to work at NIH, then NIH is their employer, not SEEC. And so that's kind of the basis behind competitive integrated employment, is that your job is with exactly who it is that is your employer, your supervisor, the person who does your evaluations. Okay, this is a picture of two guys that work at a company called Keegan, and they are a biotech medical company up in the Gaithersburg area. And the two people that are sitting at the table with them, one of them is a staff person that coaches them, and the woman in the blue is their supervisor, and they're having lunch. The two guys are employed by Keegan. I think they say Keegan, it's Q-U-I-G-O-N. It's a biotech firm. And then their supervisor and the staff person that stops in and sees how they're doing and makes sure that everything is going well. She's not there all the time. They certainly don't need that. They have been taught how to take the bus by themselves up there. And so she's just there to check in how everything's going. Do they learn something new? She's a job coach. She supports them in that. So another term that you'll hear is supported employment. And what supported employment means basically is it's a kind of service, right? So if somebody needs help to find a job and to keep a job, it's supported employment. So if somebody says, I'd like to work at Target because I love the color red, my mom shops there, it's my favorite store and I know my way around, and I really like to put things in order this way. They might get some supported employment services, and they can get those services through behavioral mental health services in Maryland. They can get that through DOORS, the Department of Rehabilitation Services, and they can get that through the Developmental Disabilities Administration. It's a term that all three of those organizations use, supported employment, and it's exactly that. It's exactly that. It's how to help somebody to become and stay employed. This is another one, Maryland. We're very fortunate in Maryland. Individual Placement Services, IPS, is specifically for people who have a behavioral health diagnosis, somebody who has mental illness or long-term mental illness. This is a very specific technology. It's a tool for how we help people who have a mental health disorder to get long-term support for finding a job, evidence-based practice. So it's as good as medicine in many cases, finding a job. That, think about that. It's you have to show up, you have to behave a certain way, you have to, there's routine, there's predictability, all of that. And that's a part of IPS. Customized employment is another term. This generally is used for people with intellectual and developmental disabilities. And this is a technique that we use when it's a little bit harder to figure out what somebody wants to do in their job, right? So we use this tool, this process called customized employment. So you might hear that. We use that when we are working with somebody who doesn't speak or who doesn't have a lot of community experience, because we really need to try new things. And there's 3 phases of customized employment: discovery, job development, and systematic instruction. So discovery, we're doing that learning. It's about a 3-month process. It's a much longer process to help somebody get a job. Job development is about 1 or 2 months. And then once they get a job, we're going to use a technology called systematic instruction and maybe use of technology to help people to get jobs. Then there's another service called community engagement in Maryland, or community development services, I think they call it specifically. And this is that stuff around the outside of that person. This is the meeting your friends for lunch. This is the going to a class at the rec department. This is volunteering, all those kind of non-paid things that people might do as a part of their day. Community engagement is what it's called. So also there's a lot of people for whom a wage job or a predictable job is not a good match. They might need to start their own business. Maybe they have good days and bad days, and they can't really work on bad days. They can't work on days that's hard for them to get out of bed, or days that are physically difficult for them. And so maybe helping them to create their own business. They can use that talent of theirs. So these are all just kind of to tell you the stories that you might hear. I want you to become familiar with this terminology. It might be the terminology that you hear in school, or as you're starting to transition out of school into either a job or into college, and to get some support. So these are just pictures of some people. This guy down in the lower corner, he works at the SEC, and at the SEC, he has worked there for about 27 years, and he is, they call him the mayor of the SEC, and he was unfortunately the first person that got furloughed when COVID hit the DC area, because that's the first place in DC that there was reported COVID, was the SEC building. And over here, this is a man who his family was at the place where they all go to get their hair done. They all go there. Their daughter, who's married, and her husband, and her his mom and his dad. They all go, and Teddy as well. And he started folding some towels when they were there, and they said, "Well, do you think that he'd want to do this?" The people who run the hair place said, "Do you think he'd want to do it? Because we could really use somebody to straighten up and do some towel folding for a couple hours a day, like 3-4 days a week." And we started the job, and that's how he started a job. So it wasn't a formal process. It was his exposure to the community and to his world, and those connections. That's the most important thing, are those really important connection. And this woman up here works in the NIH Clinical Center. She creates thoracic trays for the 2 surgeons who do thoracic surgeries. And she's a person who doesn't use her voice to talk, but she gets these perfect alignment of these tools that these doctors need. And this is a young man right here who has his own business because it works for him better to control his environment. He doesn't do well in environments where where people are coming and going, and sometimes somebody doesn't show up to work and he gets angry about that. And so he works in his own space. He has a little rented office that he uses, and he has his own micro business. He does scanning and photo duplications. So those are just some stories of folks. This is a story of Joe, somebody who has a very significant disability. He has a lot of support needs, and he's got a lot of, you'll see in these pictures, he does some volunteering. He's got that meaningful day. He does the volunteering. He does, here he's handing out Christmas gifts for kids. But here is where he's actually paid. He's paid to work at the child care center, where he brings his iPad and he buys stories that speak, that can be read. He lays on the ground and he does story time for the kids every day before works, or before the kids take their nap. So, but that's not, it's not a whole day. And so he's got a lot of stuff he does around. So, again, everybody works, and work looks different for everybody. Work can be outside. It can be some days of the week, but not others. It could be in traditional jobs. It could be whatever it is that work is for people is the way it should be. But work is always paid. Work is always paid. Volunteering is volunteering, but work is always paid. So I just want to share with you some things about employers, because you are probably, a lot of you, employers. Your neighbors are employers. Your relatives are employers, hiring managers. So we had a short little visit with President Biden when he first came to office. He was meeting the people here, I can play this real quick.
We moved here a few years ago, and we are an urban vertical farm located right next door. We grow salad greens, microgreens, and edible flowers. Beautiful salads. We deliver them all over the greater Washington, D.C. area, both to homes, and we donate locally here in the neighborhood.
Now, you've been engaged in the neighborhood too. You sponsor Little League team, don't you?
We do. We sponsor a Little League team. We also we run job fairs for special needs programs to get their students to help them find employment. We've actually hired 3 people from that job program. It's called Project Search. It's a partnership between a nonprofit and the DC government, and they do a great job training their students who are special needs to come and be able to work in an environment like this and be great contributors.
Have you hired any of those folks?
We've hired 3.
Great.
Yeah. And Mary participated in our first job fair. We were going to do another.
We moved here a few years.
So I'll tell you a little bit about that. So President Biden went in there to talk to this guy about what it's like to run a small business during COVID. And he changed the story to talk about hiring people with disabilities, and that he got such a great partnership. It's a 8th Street corridor in DC. It's called F. Jenks Hardware. It's been there for a lot of years, Jenks Hardware. And I think they have 3 locations. As he said, they've hired 3 people with intellectual and developmental disabilities, actually 2 people with autism and 1 with intellectual disability. And he was so empowered by the work that his team members were doing, that he said, my colleagues who are having a hard time hiring, we should have a job fair for them too. That's that partnership with employers. It wasn't us going out there. It was about the employer relationship and developing these really, really strong employer partnerships. So one of the things the Department of Labor has done is they've done a lot of research. Some of us were maybe involved in junior achievement when we were young, and they've done a lot of studies around junior achievement. And what employers say they really want from somebody who is an employee is they want work discipline. Do they show up on time? Do they do a good job? Do they take pride in their work? Are they dependable? Can they be a member of the team? Do they give and take as a part of a team? Do they listen? Are they oriented towards the customer? Are they able to meet the needs of people? So the professional, the work ethic, the professionalism, all of that. Nobody says you have to have a PhD to work here, right? What they say is, are they a team player? Do they have good skills? These are the things we can be working on right now by belonging to sports clubs or bowling leagues or just any kinds of things that people can belong to. Just like we're preparing our sons and daughters who don't have disabilities for a life of work, those are the same things we have to do for our sons and daughters who have disabilities, to take responsibility, to make their own breakfast, to pick up their own clothes, to hang up their jacket when they come in, to take the papers out of their backpack and put them wherever they need to go, to charge their laptop. All of those really important things are the same things that we ask for people with disabilities. So how do we prepare for that life? We ride the public transportation whenever possible. Even if you know that you can get a ride to someplace, maybe it's worth taking the bus once a week to the grocery store with your son or daughter, right? Just so they're used to that if there's somebody who won't be driving. Are they sharing in chores? Do they volunteer like everybody else in the family? When there's a cleanup or a Habitat for Humanity or something, are they volunteering just like everybody else? And take pictures and tell their story, tell their story, tell their story. The more you talk about your son and daughter and the great things they can do, people will go, I need somebody who can work, who does that, right? The more you do that, the more opportunities it gets for people to be able to go out there. That life trajectory that you got the first week, and I hope you're all using, it's a great tool. We have one of the ambassadors, two actually now, ambassadors of this life course work here at SEEC. They both have small children, none of them who have disabilities, and they do this for all their kids and give them to the teachers at the beginning of the year because it's such a great tool. So we start by asking questions, telling stories, talking about what will make your dream come true, what do you want to be when you grow up. So I think, this is a little bit, does not look big enough, but so one of the first things we do is you want to make sure that there's a lot of work things happening in your IEPs while you're still transitioning. You want to make sure that you're looking at an adult agency to support your son or daughter, not to do what they do, but to do what you want to have done. You want to visit people they support. You want to meet some people from that organization. If all else fails, you might want to start your own agency. That's how every agency started. That's how the ARC started. That's how SEEC started. And just really keep in mind that employment is the basis for how everybody belongs, and we should give people that need some support. We should give them the same opportunities. So this is another piece of information, ask for a person-centered plan, develop a profile, a work profile, share your vision, share pictures and stories, recognize the networks that you're already involved in and that you have relationships with, and share those stories. And I am going to stop sharing my screen and see if there are any questions.
I see one question.
Yeah, I see the question about ticket to work via Social Security. So absolutely. So I'm hoping that Michael will talk about that a little bit. We at SEEC are ticket to work. We do work with ticket to work. So ticket to work, if a person has Social Security and somebody helps them to find a job that is registered as a employment network, or EN, employment network, or there are employment networks out there you can find. There are, I think, 6 milestone payments in ticket to work. I'm not an expert on it. It's one of those things I know about, but I don't know a ton about. We were an employment network, but we weren't using it enough. And it's one of those things, if you don't use it, you lose it. And so we hire somebody from the outside who does our employment network work for us. But we, as an organization, we collect probably $100,000 a year on people doing Ticket to Work. It's a lot of money. So once a person gets a job, if they're on Social Security, as they have longevity in their job, we get rewarded for helping them to find that job by getting milestone payments or payments along the way. So would they find the job for you? There are organizations out there that use solely Ticket to Work as a way of funding. I know a number of Ticket to Work organizations in Maryland. I don't know if all of them, they partner one way or another. They partner with provider organizations. So you can look at who in Maryland is a Ticket to Work provider, and they should be able to help you identify an employment network. They should be able to help you. Also, Doris, the Department of Rehab Services, should also be able to tell you who the ticket providers or who the employment networks are in the area.
Karen, thank you so much. Are there any more questions for Karen specifically? Karen will monitor the chat. You can pick them up as we go.
Yeah, I actually do have to leave. I was going to stay on for about 5 more minutes. So if people have it, they can put it in the chat and I will, and I can add them back. But I also will get to you in a couple of days, this PowerPoint after I take out some of the pictures, and my information is there. And please feel free to contact me if you have any questions or thoughts or anything you want to talk about.
We'll get the questions to you.
Great.
Great. Thank you so much. Great seeing you again. At this time, let's introduce our panelists. So I'd ask Melissa, Doris, and Bradley to unmute and turn on your cameras. So let's introduce our panelists tonight. The first one is Melissa Rosenberg, who is the Executive Director of the Howard County Autism Society, and she's here tonight to talk about the Autism Hiring Program. Our second presenter is Doris Jacobs. Doris is the manager of Howard County Youth Employment Services with Humanim. And our third panelist is Bradley Wilson, who is a graduate of Appleton High School, who attended our Community Connection and Project Search program and is currently in a wage job. Did I say that right, Karen? He's in a wage job with Deep Run Elementary School. Thank you all the panelists for coming. Melissa, why don't we start with you?
Sure. Thank you, Dawson. So I'm here tonight, as Dawson said, to talk about our autism hiring program. And we just are beginning our second year and our third cohort of candidates that started at the end of March. We're a little unique in that we target a group of individuals who are not receiving services elsewhere. So these are autistic adults who all have high school degrees. Most of them have some college or college degrees, certifications, other training or education, but for whatever reason have struggled to find and more likely maintain employment. So this all kind of came about from our adult social group, which is a group of independent adults who meet every Saturday. And we started hearing from them that they were having some difficulty finding jobs, keeping jobs. And we were able to sort of casually find one young guy a job in IT. And then everybody started coming and saying, can you help me find a job? So with some research and support, we put this program together, a little bit of funding from the county and from the DD Council. Got started with our first group of 5 candidates. We are partnering on this with Accessible Resources for Independence, and they provide a 10-week curriculum for us. We also work with the Workforce Center here in Howard County. They've helped us provide mock interviews, resume prep, and cover letters, those kinds of things. Also have worked with the UMBC Training Center, and a couple of our folks have taken some courses there on cybersecurity or other courses that will help improve their skills to get other employment. So it's very important to understand that this is a group that a lot of people refer to as in-betweeners, sort of falling between the cracks. They don't qualify for DOORS, they're not qualifying for DDA, they're not with an agency, not having a job coach, and yet they need some supports. At the same time, we're working with employers. You guys might have heard of some of the programs that these large corporations have, hiring programs like Microsoft, Ernst & Young, where they've created internally these hiring programs to onboard autistic adults to fill different roles, many times in the IT field or cybersecurity. So our thought was, how can we take a model sort of like that, bring it down to a more local level, and make it work for employers who have, maybe they're just local, but also maybe have a statewide or national footprint. And so we're now with, we have 8 graduates of the program. 7 of them are working, some part-time, some full-time with benefits. They're working, we have one in a warehouse, a hardware store, retail. We've had somebody in a restaurant, law firm. We have a young man about ready to be hired by a civil engineering firm, a federal agency. And it's, we're not focusing just on IT, it's a variety of skills. But these folks are, maybe have some challenges that we can help them overcome and support. At the same time, one of the most important parts of this program is the support for the employer. And so we're working with the employer, we're going in and we're doing training on not just autism, but also neurodiversity and how they can create a more neurodiverse workforce. So autism, but also ADHD, mental health challenges, learning disabilities, learning differences, how they can look at their entire hiring program, make some changes that really will benefit all of their employees. We've had it's starting to catch on. We're very excited to be doing more of these trainings. Getting ready to do one for Columbia Association here in town. We've done one with Northrop Grumman. Getting ready to do one with the Defense Intelligence Agency, but also Clark's Hardware here that's local. So that's what I mean. We're trying to be sort of nimble and flexible with the goal of getting people into employment. Employment that they want, and to Karen's point, that has meaning for them, that will give them a wonderful life and independence, and that's really our goal. So that's an overview of it, and when we send out all the materials, I'll make sure that I send the one page that we have, and I can put a link to the program in the chat if anybody's interested. We're hoping that we will be running another session either this summer or early fall. So thank you.
Karen, you still with us? Did you happen to see the question in the chat?
One.
My daughter wants to be a singer, but can't
Oh,
carry.
I did. I just direct messaged them.
Okay, great. Thank
Yep.
you. I knew you could. Thank you, Melissa. Let's go to our next speaker, who is Doris Jacobs, the manager of Howard County Youth Employment Services with Humanim. Doris?
Yes, absolutely. Great evening, everybody. I hope everybody is feeling good. And also thank you to Karen. That was a wonderful presentation. And Melissa, I'm always taking notes. So as you were talking, I'm jotting down things as well. So again, as Dawson said, I'm Doris Jacobs. I'm the manager of Youth Transition Services for Howard and Anne Arundel County. I get the joy of jumping back and forth between the line. So here at Humanim, we have a lot of services for the youth. So we work directly with the Howard County school system, and we also partner with Division of Rehab Services in order to service the youth and help them mainly with their pre-employment aspirations. I know in Karen's slideshow, she mentioned the question of what does your son or your daughter want to do? What does your son and daughter want to do? So thankfully, we have programs here at Humanim where we could kind of help them navigate, because trust me, we get a lot of youth that come and they say, well, I don't know, Miss Doris, I want to work at GameStop. You know, everybody loves video games, right? So we do have multiple services, again, that can help them navigate. And even if they don't understand specifically what they want to do, it will at least open the door to many different opportunities of what they want to do, and also create that roadmap of that career that they want to get to. So in the chat, because again, Humanim is so robust with many programs, I had to put out acronyms in there because sometimes I get to rambling and I switch up and I say my acronyms. So starting from the top, we do have the STEP program. That means Student to Employment Program. This is our vocational rehabilitation service. And this is specifically dedicated to the students who recently graduated high school. So again, this is post-graduation program. And again, this is for students, young adults, because they graduated, who may not have DDA funding or any other supports in place to help them with gaining employment in their community. So this service is for 3 years, and we offer job development and coaching. Okay. So moving on next, we have our Start on Success program. This is the award-winning program, if I have to brag, not only with Howard and Anne Arundel County, but we actually are branched across the region, such as Baltimore City, Baltimore County, Harford County, and we also were in Delaware for a while. Again, this is a high school programs. This is under the pre-employment category under Doris. And this is geared towards our diploma-bound juniors and seniors with a disability. And this is providing vocational exploration, preparation, and also training to the participating youth that's that needs assistance with developing and achieving their vocational goals by way of volunteering for 8 weeks. And it'll be 12 hours per week. Sorry, had a little mind blur for a second. Also, this program is offered both virtual and in person. Moving on, I would like to talk about our work-based learning program. We call it Weeble for short. I think a lot of parents on this call might have heard of Weeble because we get quite a few referrals that come through, and the rotation turnaround is pretty quick. So this is a 4 to 8 week internship where this program does introduce high school age students with a disability into employment. So the weekly hours are part-time, but they will not exceed over 32 hours. So again, with the SOS program, we had a hard stop at 12, but with the Weeble, if your son or daughter does have a more significant disability, and you might say, hey, Doris, they can only do 5 hours, we can grant that and we can work around that. So again, it's much more flexible. Again, this work-based learning is a hands-on discovery into the different fields that they may never thought that they had interest in before. And the youth will basically learn the concrete experience to use for their future employment, and also to understand workplace expectations. So they will be acquiring transferable skills and building that self-confidence when dealing with employers. The good thing with this work-based learning opportunity program, they can do multiple rotations. So if they do one, let's just hypothetically say at a supermarket and they're stocking, they can come back for another cohort and say, you know what, I think I want to work at a farm this time. And they get to volunteer there. And they might come back again for a third time and say, okay, I think I'm ready to try the library now. So again, I really do enjoy that program because again, you get to have multiple touches and different experiences. And last but not least of alphabet soup, we have Student Career Choices Program. Now, this program has a special place in my heart. Don't tell anybody else, okay? This is dedicated for our certificate track students because we've noticed that the need for Howard County and us having these programs, we can't leave out our certificate track kids. So this is someone who does possess a wide range of disability and learning styles. So we will help them with the knowledge and the skills and the experience to help them build those skills, with competitive and integrated employment. I'm stumbling a little bit today. Again, this program does explore the potential career interests, and we also deliver these learning curriculums differently. So with this program specifically, we did convert to virtual back when COVID was in the thick of it, but we are looking to transition back into the school system. Again, that's in the works. So I don't want to put anything out there too soon, but definitely this school year approaching, you will be receiving flyers, literature. I'm always connected with the transition teachers at the high schools. So definitely, if you want to receive more information, Dawson will have all of my flyers of the programs, and he will be able to share with anybody that needs it. And also on those flyers, you'll have my direct contact and also an email for interest. I do see in the chat, some people sent me direct messages. Do any of your programs offer transportation? So unfortunately, none of my programs offer transportation. We did have transportation connected to the SEEC program because we were in school on site and we were able to transport students home. But to be honest, ever since COVID came and kind of swooped the world, we had to put a pause on transportation with our student career choices program. But the other programs, transportation is up to the parents or the students. But one thing I can honestly say, I've seen many different ways of how the students would get back and forth to their volunteer sites. I've seen parents, if you trust them, do carpool. I've seen kids do Uber. I've seen kids actually catch the bus. So again, it's different ways. Again, unfortunately, we're not offering transportation at the time. But one thing that I do want to make note, because I know this is a really big issue for Howard County itself in regards to transportation, getting back and forth, especially with like RTA and, you know, paratransit, that definitely is a subject matter on the many councils that I sit on within the county. So I do want to say that. I do see another question. It says, is there a consolidated resource to shows all of the opportunities by the state, county, et cetera, available, the eligibility criteria necessary for all of these services? So that is a really, really great question. And again, I sit on multiple county councils, and that actually is one of the agenda items that we are focusing on for this year. I'll let Dawson speak to it just a little bit, so I won't go rambling on. But if anybody else has any questions directed to me, please drop them in the chat.
Yeah, and when Karen was mentioning that the journey is not about an agency, that question really addresses the importance of the agency because they set their own eligibility requirements. So when you go to your IEP meeting and the team asks you, is there an agency on the transition page you would interested in learning more about? This is where that piece comes into focus. And I will also send out the contact information for the transition teachers who know more information about what the eligibility pieces are. And it varies. The schools vary by county, but statewide, the eligibility should be consistent for the agencies across the board.
And just really quick, I'm sorry, I got another question in the chat. It says, I'm sorry, I missed what you said on the DDA clients help for work. So the only thing I said about DDA, I said for the student to employment program, which is my post-graduation program, that if your youth, your son or daughter does not qualify for DDA, by going through Doris and Division of Rehabilitation Services and becoming eligible with them, you are able to receive 3 years job coach and job development service through Humanim. So we're kind of like I don't want to say the middleman, we're kind of like the step before DDA. So if you do have an application in process, but you haven't gotten approved yet, we can provide services until that comes through. What happens if they do qualify for DDA? They will shift. So with DDA, that's when they'll receive different funding and they will shift under, what is that person? You would get like a case manager, and anybody can jump out, correct me if I'm wrong. You would get a case manager that will basically help you, direct you to local service providers that provide job coaching services, and basically that funding will continue on with that job support. But one thing that we have done here at Humanim, once a client does transfer over to DDA, if the client, of course, because they are post-high school, they have to agree for us to release information to the next person, but we always do a proper handoff. And when, sorry, another one just popped up. SOS and Weeble programs only for high school students. What if they already graduated high school? So for the youth that graduated high school, they have to have post-secondary education already in place, meaning they have to be enrolled in school or something in that source. So with the Division of Rehabilitation Services, you have to basically show them proof like, hey, my son or my daughter is enrolled in school, or they're enrolled in some sort of post-secondary education institution, and they want to receive proof such as an acceptance letter or a class schedule, and they will able to remain to receive pre-ed services, but that's only if they have some type of schooling aligned. If you're looking for job coaching or job supportive type of services, you would have to apply for the vocational rehabilitation and not pre-eds. Pre-eds is specifically for our high school youth. And I see one more, then what programs would they have? Sherry, I'm gonna just keep chatting you privately in the chat so I can understand specifically what you're asking. But for everybody else, thank you. I had a blast talking to you. I'm also going to drop my information email and my number as well. If anybody lays down in the middle of the night like me and think of random questions, I'm not afraid to answer them. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Doris. Humanim truly is a transparent agency because they service students who are eligible for DOORS and DDA. Thank you very much. So our last panelist, it's a pleasure to introduce Bradley Wilson. Bradley, can you come on board and unmute? Because we have a transitioning youth with us tonight. I know Bradley from his time at Atholton High School, Community Connection and Project Search. So Bradley, we'll let you tell your story now.
Hi, my name is Bradley Wilson. I went to Atholton High School. After Atholton, I was in Community Connection program where I did my volunteer job. Then I went into Project Search. While in Project Search, I had an interview with Dearborn Elementary School, and I got my current job in March of 2021. I'm a lunch and recess monitor for them. I love my job. I help the kids with their lunches in the cafeteria, and I also clean up between lunches. Someday I go on the playground and watch the kids during recess. I love being part of the Dearborn family and look forward to going to work each day. Thank you.
Bradley, let me help you relax a little. You're a big University of Maryland fan, aren't you?
Yes.
I know. I see. I'm going to help Bradley relax because I know I could get a smile on his face. So Bradley, you were at Atholton High School. Did you always want to work?
Yes.
You don't need to look at your mom. She said. So what did you want to do when you were young? What was your dream job?
Work with kids.
Well, there we go. And what experiences did you have at Atholton in terms of work?
Elementary school.
Okay. Then you went to Community Connection program. And how was that? That is our transition program at Howard Community College for people that don't know. What is, can you tell us about your experience at Community Connection?
I work in elementary school.
Again, you like working with children.
And you took a child care.
Then I took childcare class.
You got your child care certification there.
Yep.
You got your card from the Regional Transit Authority so you could ride for free. So you learned about the community.
Yep.
And then you went to Project Search. Tell us about your experience there. Where did you train there?
Just at the classroom.
The Dutchman classroom.
Because COVID.
Because COVID.
Oh, because of COVID. Yeah, that was very difficult. So we're all interested in learning how the job at Deep Run happened. Can you tell us how you ended up in Deep Run?
where I met with the vice principal
Mhm.
What you could do.
and told her what I could do.
So you were volunteering at Deep Run, right?
No,
No, so they didn't even know you,
no,
but they certainly found a good employee. And you're in a paid job. How many hours a week are you working?
3 hours
A day.
a day.
3 hours a day. How do you get to work? How do you get home?
My mom.
Your mom. Could you take public transportation if you had to?
No, because I'm in my neighborhood.
Might be difficult. Okay, so with the money you're earning, are you setting up banking and all those type of things?
Yes,
Good, you're in charge of your money, right?
yes.
What do you want to do with your money?
I don't know.
Yeah,
I'm saving right now.
you eventually want to live on your own?
Eventually,
Eventually, right? Do you think you'd like your own place or would you like to have roommates?
roommates.
Roommates? Okay. And how would you describe working at Deep Run? Is it,
It's a lot of fun.
what's challenging there for you at work?
Uh-huh.
Not always easy, is it?
No,
The kids throw their trash away.
make sure kids throw the trash away.
Yeah. You must be doing a good job if they hired you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do we have any questions for Bradley today? Well, Bradley, I know it's hard to speak in public. I think you were brave and you did a great job showing up. Is there anything else you'd like to share with us today?
Thank you for having me. though.
Thank you for having me.
And go Terps.
Yep, what's up? And this is done.
Great. So Bradley, thank you for coming and thank you to all our panelists. Are there any questions people could unmute now and ask us if they'd like? Anybody left here? We'd certainly have another 10 minutes for people. Melissa, you want to remind people what we're going to send them?
Sure. So in a few days, once the recording is ready, we will load that to our website. We'll send you the link. Karen is going to resend her PowerPoint, and then we'll have some any other materials that panelists would like to share. Doris, if you have anything, we can send that as well. And that'll go out to everybody who registered. And then we do have, as Dawson mentioned, one more session of our transition symposium, which is, it's long, but it's incredibly detailed and well done by Michael Daltel on SSI and SSDI. And that is, Dawson, it's May, remind me. 24th. Okay. And if you're registered, which you all are, you'll get a reminder email about that. So you're already registered. Spread the word. We'd like more people, and that will be recorded as well, probably in a couple pieces because it's a little longer session.
Yeah, and you're getting it for free because he charges as a consultant. So
that's right.
If you see
That's
him
right.
once, you're going to want to see him again. Believe me.
And
if I may say, sorry, Melissa.
That's
Sorry,
all right,
Melissa.
Matt. Go ahead.
If I may say, I've heard him before in People on the Go. We've had him in our self-advocate meetings. He's very knowledgeable.
Mm-hmm.
So these parents will get a lot out of him because he knows the system. He knows what to do. So if you would want anybody helping you, it would be him. So
That's great. We have a question, Dawson.
Yes, I was just wondering, Bradley, thank you so much for sharing. It's a pleasure to virtually meet you. I was wondering if you can share about your interview process. It sounds like you have so many job opportunities. So is it easy for you to go through the interview process? And how do you prepare yourself?
You usually practice with family.
I usually practice with family
About
what to say.
And you. What do they want to do?
So for tonight, I gave Bradley some talking points so he could practice. And Bradley, is that what you did for your interview too? Did they help you with Project Search?
Yes.
Yeah. So they went over the interview questions, how does the environment, why do you want to work here? What skills do you bring to the table? And practice helps, right, Bradley? I'd say that's a fair statement.
Yes.
Yes.
And you have to dress nice.
We have a question in the chat, and then I know Lillian has her hand up too, but Stephen asks if the employee tends to need someplace to go when he is overwhelmed, are there accommodations for that? If you need a break or a quiet room, do you have any accommodations, Bradley? Or we could just talk more broadly about it. Maybe Doris could address too.
Sure, I can say something. I was waiting to see if Bradley came unmuted. So it should be certain accommodations that do follow with paid competitive employment. I always use the interview, especially if they have a job coach, because with the services that we provide, we always have a job coach or a program coordinator on site with them. So we definitely try to create the relationship with the employer and also use the interview kind of as that conversation space to let them know specifically what can be flexible and what can't be. So kind of just understanding from the forefront of, again, what accommodations can be met. So there is a law, of course, surrounding accommodations if the person needs something physically. But I always believe in just kind of being transparent and being open and honest during the interview process, because that's basically what an interview is. It's pretty much having a conversation and, of course, figuring out if you're the best candidate for that open position. But I always tell my youth when they go in to have that conversation. And at the end, when the employer says, do you have any questions for me? Yes, you do. You want to turn that table and interview them right back. And that will be the perfect time to explain a scenario with, if I get overwhelmed, is there a place where I can go to just cool down, maybe count backwards to 10, get myself together and come back. And then the employer would either simply say yes or no. And that would definitely help shift our vision on if we want the employment or not. Because I also tell my youth, just because you were hired for the position, you don't necessarily have to take the job. It definitely has to suit you as well. I hope that answers your question, Stephen.
Lillian, did you hop off? Are you still on? Lillian had her hand up.
Oh, yes, I'm still
Oh,
here.
sorry, there you are, Lillian.
Hi. I had a question for Bradley, please. My son is actually going to graduate Wild Lake High School in about a month, and he really wants to work. He's very nervous though. He has a job interview coming up, and I wanted to know from you, Bradley, how are you able to not be so nervous, and what advice would you have for him to not be so nervous in his interview and while at work? What keeps you calm?
Speaker. You were nervous,
I was nervous,
but you like working with kids so much. You just talked about.
but I
it.
like to work in kids, so I was talking to them.
And the people you interviewed with were very nice.
The people I interviewed was really nice.
Okay. Well, that's very helpful, and I'll share that with him. I'll share that with him. Thank you.
If I may jump into the I did it again. Ugh, if I may jump into that question, what helped me when I've been nervous in the past getting interviews, even though I sometimes when I'm nervous at work, I take like a stress ball with me or something to help me when I get stressed out. I just have the ball with me and I hold it in my hand and I use it just to get me not stressed out. And plus, I sometimes would count to 10. So that might help him too.
Yes, yes. I will share that with him. That's very good advice as well. Thank you so much.
No problem.
Thanks, Matt.
And if I can chime in just really quick, Miss Lillian, we also offer interview assistance with a lot of our programs. And one thing that we always recommend that tends to do the trick, we actually list the 10 most frequently asked interview questions on a piece of paper. And we actually have our youth reply to the question, meaning they'll either write it or type it down. So when the interview does come, let your son take a folder. That way, if he gets stumped or he kind of has that moment, he could always just glance down really quick and then it'll jog his memory on what to say.
Okay, thank you. Are those questions on your site? On your
I can copy and paste it in the chat if that'll help you. I
That
have
would
it at a clickable button.
That would be perfect. He actually has an interview tomorrow at 4.
Good timing.
I know. I'm stressing more than he is.
He's going to be great. I'll send it to you in a direct message.
Thank you.
That's great. Any other questions?
Right on time.
Right on time.
Thank you, everybody, for joining us. And we look forward to seeing you at the May 24th Michael Dalto SSI SSDI presentation. You can continue. I will stay on for a couple minutes if you have questions, and we'll answer your questions. If we can't hear, we'll send them. Melissa will forward answers to your questions. Thank you, everybody, for joining us tonight. Bradley, take care.
Bye, Bradley. Thank you. Thank you, Doris.
Bye.
And Connie, thank you.
Thank you all.